Dismantled life. After 30 days in surgery, I discovered my heartwarming family secret exposed. Sarah had always known Maplewood as the kind of town where doors were never locked and neighbors were practically family. For years, the 32-year-old nurse poured her heart into caring for others, touching the lives of patients navigating through pain and uncertainty. But now, as she lay in a hospital bed after heart surgery, she felt the world she built around her start to crumble. Memories surged like tidal waves, laughter spilling into backyards, children playing tag, her father's gentle voice soothing her fears. It was all gone, replacing warmth with fear, tears streaming down a face that once wore an ever-present smile. 30 days later, Sarah stepped out of the hospital, her heart still weakened but her spirit untouched. Each step was a battle, yet each meal delivered by her neighbors, each encouraging message hung from her porch, felt like a bandage on her weary soul. The chaos of her vulnerability transformed into a symphony of support, casseroles piled on her doorstep, kids tracing crayons over get-well cards. Love wrapped around her like a soft blanket, but in that warmth, a shiver of anxiety crept in. How could she deserve this? Just when Sarah thought she had grasped the support of her community, she received an anonymous letter that shook her world anew. The bold cursive revealed her late father's hidden past. A decorated war veteran, he had performed heroic acts, saving lives during his service, yet he had kept it under wraps, shying away from recognition. Her heart swelled with admiration and confusion. How could the man who taught her humility now guide her in this moment of self-discovery? But moments later, whispers in the community hinted at another story. People regarded her father's military feats not as a legacy of modesty but as a pathway to stability for Sarah. They urged her to share his story, see fame as a means to elevate her family's name out of financial struggle. Their faces, once serious with concern, now lit with expectation as if they were waiting for her to take the stage. The weight of these expectations bore down on her. Should she follow her father's lead of quiet dignity, or should she chase after the glimmering American dream, adorned with success and financial freedom? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. In the days following her surgery, Sarah's mind whirled relentlessly. Conversations with neighbors echoed her turmoil. You have to tell his story, Sarah. He deserves that. The passion in their voices stung because part of her knew it could change everything: her status, her finances, even her legacy as a caregiver. But there remained a tender pull that resonated from within her heart, whispering that true value lay beyond public accolades and recognition. As she mused on her father's unyielding integrity, an overheard chat ignited her sense of purpose. His humility is what makes him a real hero, said Jane, a friend who only visited to lend her love. The power of simple kindness struck her deep. Yet here she stood, at a crossroads. Will she step into the spotlight and embrace a narrative built from glory, or will Sarah preserve the love of her father's quiet legacy in a world so hungry for recognition? As she prepared to address her neighbors at the next community gathering, every heartstring tugged with uncertainty. What if this moment could change everything, not just for her, but for the heart of Maplewood itself? The sun dipped low over Maplewood, casting a warm glow across the backyard where Sarah stood, clutching a crumpled piece of paper. The community gathering was buzzing with laughter and chatter, but all she could hear was the thumping of her own heartbeat, each beat a reminder of the weight she carried. Sarah glanced around at the familiar faces: neighbors who'd become dear friends, gathered to support her. She felt their eyes on her, filled with anticipation. It was as if they had come not just to share hope, but to witness a turning point in her life. The aroma of baked goods wafted through the air, mixing with the sweet scent of blooming flowers. Still, the atmosphere felt heavy for her. A gentle hand landed on her shoulder. It was Jane, her ever-present support. You've got this, Sarah. Just speak from your heart. Simple words, yet they enveloped her like a hug. Still, the battle raged inside. Her father's ideology of quiet dignity screamed softly, while the pressure of recognition loomed large. She thought of all the letters and kind words she had received. They had to mean something. Deep down, she felt a call to honor her father, not just by speaking, but by embodying the very values he had instilled in her. As the gathering came to order, Sarah took a breath, forcing herself to stand taller. "Thank you all for being here," she began, her voice trembling slightly. What she saw in return were encouraging smiles, and the warmth of their support ignited a flicker of courage in her. "I know many of you have expressed that my dad's story deserves to be told," she continued, her throat tightening. "He was a man of few words, but his life was a testament to true bravery." The crowd was silent now, hanging on her words. "He taught me humility, the kind of strength that doesn't need a stage or applause. He believed in helping others, just being there when it mattered most." The shared memories washed over her, feasting on the pain of loss but also filling the void, breathing life back into her tired spirit. She talked about her father's service, about the people whose lives he touched, not for glory but because he saw need. The laughter had quieted, replaced with nods of recognition. But as Sarah spoke, she became acutely aware of the two paths diverging before her. She could feel the weight of the expectations pressing down, yet there was a deeper whisper urging her to stay true to herself. The story her father lived was not about recognition, it was about heart, soul, and kindness. "Maybe it isn't about sharing the glimmer of fame," she said softly, her heart racing with each word. "Perhaps the greatest tribute I can pay him is to carry his humility into the world rather than chase the spotlight." The crowd began to stir, a mix of surprise and admiration washing across the faces she loved. The moment hung thick in the air, filled with a mix of disbelief and inspiration. But just as she thought she could wrap her mind around her decision, a voice broke through the silence. "But what if this town could really benefit from his story?" It was Tom, a longtime neighbor, his tone earnest yet worried. The question hung heavily, drowning the room in doubt. And in that instant, Sarah realized this was just the beginning. She wasn't merely choosing her path, she was igniting a conversation, a movement that would pull others into the discussion of legacy, humility, and aspiration. What would emerge from confronting her father's hidden bravery while honoring his principles? As she met Tom's gaze and everyone else's, she felt the stirring of something grander, a possible change brewing in the heart of Maplewood. And for the first time, Sarah was ready to face whatever came next. But what would that mean for her family, her father's legacy, and the community that had come to expect more from her? The buzz of conversation dimmed as the crowd processed Tom's question. Sarah felt the weight of the moment press down on her, heavier than before. What if this was more than just sharing her father's story? What if it turned into a catalyst for change? Unsure of what to do next, she took a deep breath. I appreciate everyone's support. And I understand the concern," she said, her voice steadying as she searched for the right words. "I really do. My dad's story is important, but I've learned something here today. It's not just about him. It's about us." Faces in the crowd shifted, some nodding in agreement while others stayed frozen, eyes wide. Sarah glanced at Jane, who gave her a thumbs up from the back of the group. She focused on that support and let it fuel her. What if we could be one of those towns that remembers their unsung heroes? She suggested, a spark igniting inside her. We could celebrate all the quiet acts of courage that often go unnoticed. My dad was one of many. Can we start that conversation here? A murmur rippled through the gathering as neighbors turned to one another, sharing glances that spoke volumes. Was it possible? Could Maplewood use a little more heart in their community? Tom leaned forward, curiosity written across his face. "What do you mean? Like a community project?" "Exactly. We can share stories, honor the heroes among us, people like my dad. Maybe even start a series of events dedicated to those who show kindness every day. Let us inspire each other." The words poured out of her, buoyed by newfound energy. Energy she never knew she had. Imagine gathering around, sharing meals, and asking people to recount their inspiring moments. This way, we lift each other up. We can remind ourselves of the strength we carry together. A ripple of enthusiasm began to spread. Sarah could see heads nodding, eyes lighting up. She felt the warmth envelop her, filling the space with hope. Maybe we could call it Maplewood Moments, suggested Jane, her eyes sparkling. A way to highlight everyday bravery. The clatter of dishes and laughter filled the air again, with conversations erupting around her. It was all happening so fast, but Sarah felt a flood of purpose wash over her. She was no longer just Sarah, the girl caught in the shadow of her father's legacy. She was now Sarah, the spark of a new movement. But then her heart jolted as she remembered something pivotal. What about the foundation he had been working on? She thought aloud, realizing she had to follow through on his vision. The project was something he cherished deeply. What foundation? Tom asked, his inquisitive nature piqued once again. A hush fell over the gathering once more, anticipation hanging thick in the air. She could see the interested glances, the subtle leaning forward of her friends, eager for what she might divulge next. Before he passed, my dad wanted to create a place for people to discuss their challenges. A safe haven for the stories that go unnoticed. Her voice faltered for a moment as she recalled the plans they had discussed together. He believed everyone had a story worth telling. As the crowd leaned in, her heart raced with realization. Could she actually revive that dream? What would it take? Would she have the courage to turn it into a reality? Before she could answer her own questions, a nervous but determined voice broke through. "Why don't we start now?" asked a young woman from the edge of the crowd. Everyone turned to her, waiting for what came next. Sarah's breath hitched, excitement and anxiety crashing together. What if we shared just one story tonight? Just to get the ball rolling? The buzz in the crowd shifted again, a mix of uncertainty and eagerness swirling in the air. "Will you share a story with us, Sarah?" Jane asked, support alive in her tone. Sarah found herself at a crossroads once more. The path ahead was full of promise, yet unsure. Could she step up and lead this new journey? And in that moment, as the crowd looked on expectantly, she realized that the real journey was about to begin. The room grew quiet, the kind of quiet that felt heavy enough to lift the air. Sarah's heart thumped wildly against her ribs. She could feel every gaze on her, the weight of their expectations pressing down on her like a blanket. It felt surreal. Just moments ago, she was unsure about sharing her father's legacy. Now she was set to bare her soul in front of everyone. Taking a shaky breath, she stood taller. "All right, I'll share," she said, trying to inject confidence into her voice. "This is the story of my dad and how he turned our family's struggles into purpose." She paused for a second, searching the faces around her. Each one seemed to lean in closer, eager for the narrative to unfold. "When I was a kid, my family faced hard times. Financial troubles were just the beginning. My dad worked longer hours than anyone I knew, driving a delivery truck all around Maplewood." Sarah felt a rush of memories. The evening spent waiting for him to come home, the smell of his cologne lingering in the hall, the way he always smiled, even when he didn't have the energy left to do so. He believed in hard work, she continued, but more than that, he believed in helping others. He often came home with stories about the people he met. A wave of recognition washed over the crowd as she spoke. They nodded, remembering their own experiences. "I remember one night, he came home with a tired smile, and he told us about an elderly woman he delivered groceries to. She lived alone, and every week, she struggled to make ends meet. My dad decided to give her a discount out of his own pay. It's just a little help for someone who needs it," he said. She glanced at Jane, who was beaming, and it filled her with warmth. "That was my dad. Always looking for ways to uplift others. He taught me that small acts of kindness create ripples. You never know who you might inspire." As she spoke, she could see the softening expressions on the faces in the room, each story creating a thread of connection between them. "After he passed, I often wondered if anyone would remember those quiet moments. But standing here, I feel his spirit with me." Tears pooled in her eyes, but she smiled through them. I want to honor his memory with this foundation he dreamed of. To create a space where each of us can share our own stories, to celebrate kindness and bravery, just as he taught me. A ripple of applause broke out, and it engulfed her. The sound echoed in her ears as she let the emotion settle. Sarah felt both vulnerable and empowered simultaneously. This was her father's legacy, and now it was a part of her own. But just then, something tugged at her heart. Could one night of sharing be enough? Was this the starting line of something bigger, or would it be forgotten by dawn? Just as the applause faded, Tom cleared his throat again. You've inspired us all, Sarah. What's the next step? How do we turn this into a reality? The question hung in the air, and Sarah felt the pulse of excitement spread through her. This was it. They weren't turning back. Before she could answer, she caught the eye of an elderly man at the back, his face lined with years of stories yet to be told. He shifted, leaning on his cane. I have a story too, if you'd let me. Her breath caught, a flood of anticipation surging through her. The journey was only just beginning, and the world felt full of possibilities. What would happen when shared stories started weaving the fabric of their community? Perhaps tonight would be just the first of many heartfelt exchanges. And as the man began to speak, Sarah felt something profound stir in her chest, curiosity for every voice waiting to be heard. The elderly man's voice trembled as he began. My name is Mr. Jenkins, and I've lived in this town all my life. His words hung in the air, weighted by years of experience. Sarah felt the room perk up with his introduction, a blend of respect and anticipation enveloping the crowd. My life hasn't always been easy, he continued, a faraway look in his eyes. In my youth, I faced my share of losses. But it wasn't until my own father passed that I truly learned what it meant to carry a legacy. He paused, looking around at the faces that mirrored his emotions. He was a simple man, a farmer, always tending to others' needs before his own. One year, when the crops were bad, he gave away our food to families in greater need. I didn't understand then, but now that's what he'd have wanted. A few people in the audience nodded, their empathy filling the space. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes again. The old man's vulnerability was stirring something deep inside her, too, a shared understanding of sacrifice and love that transcended generations. Years later, after I became a father myself, Mr. Jenkins continued, I found myself in a similar position. My daughter, Lily, had an accident. It was devastating. I lost my job just as the medical bills piled up. I didn't know how we would survive. He wiped a tear from the corner of his eye, and a few more gasps came from the audience. But I remembered my dad. I started giving. No matter how little I had. I helped neighbors fix their cars. I watched their kids when they needed a hand. And slowly, hope found its way back. Lily had often spoken of her father with admiration, and Sarah now understood why. The man before her was a testament to resilience, just like her dad had been. It dawned on her that each shared story had the power to rent open the wounds of loss while sewing the threads of healing together. As Mr. Jenkins wrapped up, the audience erupted in applause once more. It rang louder this time, a wave of appreciation washing over him. Sarah's heart soared, but a quiet voice in her head asked what this truly meant for her new foundation. Would stories like these become frequent gatherings, or would they wane like echoes in an empty room? Tom's voice cut through her thoughts. We need a plan, folks. Let us not lose the momentum. How can we turn this into an ongoing effort? A community where these stories fuel our spirit? All around the room, faces lit up with ideas. Someone mentioned having monthly meetings, others spoke about creating a newsletter to share stories. But as enthusiasm built, Sarah found herself shushing the crowd gently. Let us solidify one idea tonight, she said firmly, her voice steady even as her heart raced. Before they could discuss further, a young woman in the front stood up. Can we create a way for people to anonymously share their stories? Some might feel scared to speak, but every voice deserves to be heard. As Sarah locked eyes with the young woman, something clicked. This wasn't just about her father anymore, it was about the collective heart of Maplewood. Suddenly, the road ahead stretched out like an inviting trail. Absolutely. Sarah agreed, excitement bubbling in her chest. Let us make it our mission to gather these stories from all walks of life so no one feels alone. A palpable energy pulsed through the room, and Sarah realized they were on the brink of something beautiful together. She could already envision a community united by shared experiences, thread by thread, story by story. But just then, the door creaked open, and in walked a new figure, a young girl with a hesitant look. Clutching a crumpled piece of paper, she glanced around nervously before meeting Sarah's gaze. I have a story too. What could this unexpected newcomer bring to the table? With her heart racing, Sarah found herself caught between excitement and curiosity. The night's revelations were far from over. The room fell silent, all eyes shifting to the young girl standing at the threshold. Her voice trembled, but there was a spark of determination burning in her gaze. Sarah felt her heart quicken. She could sense the weight of the moment, the anticipation crackling in the air like electricity before a storm. "What is your name?" Sarah encouraged softly, motioning for her to come forward. "Emily," the girl replied, her fingers nervously clutching the paper even tighter. As she walked closer, the shimmering overhead lights cast a gentle halo around her, adding to the gentle glow of hope permeating the room. "Take your time, Emily," Sarah said, her voice steady and warm. "We're all here to listen." Emily nodded and unfolded the wrinkled paper, taking a deep breath. "I wrote this for school, but it feels more important now." Her voice grew stronger as she continued, "My grandma used to tell me stories about her childhood, how she grew up in a time when everything was different but still kind of the same, you know?" She glanced around, searching for understanding. "Yeah, that's right," a voice from the back of the room chimed in. It was Mrs. Anderson, her hair sprinkled with gray, nodding in agreement. "Those stories connect us." With newfound courage, Emily pressed on. "But one day, she didn't come home. We waited and waited, but she was gone. I thought her stories were lost too. I promised myself, if I could just write them down, I could keep her alive, keep her memory alive." A hush had fallen over the room, and the ache of shared loss settled heavily on everyone's hearts. Emily took another breath, her gaze steadying. "Then, when I found out about this gathering, I thought maybe I could share some of her stories so she doesn't fade away completely." The audience listened, captivated by her bravado. For a moment, Sarah felt as if the air itself thickened with memories unspoken, experiences waiting to surface. Emily began to read her grandma's stories, tales of friendship, love, and small-town adventures. As her voice took flight, images danced vividly in the minds of those who listened. They felt like warm rays on a chilly day. When she finished, the room erupted into applause. It was a roaring tide of appreciation, a communal recognition of the courage it took for Emily to stand up and speak her truth. Sarah felt tears stinging her eyes once more, but this time they were accompanied by a swelling pride. She could see glimpses of strength and unity blooming all around her. "Thank you, Emily," Sarah said, stepping toward her. "Your bravery has reminded us all of the power of story." As she looked around the room, Sarah noticed heads nodding in agreement. People were murmuring, their hearts seeing reflections of their own stories in Emily's brave airing of the past. In a moment of spontaneity, Tom stood up. "What if we create a community archive? A place where stories like Emily's and Mr. Jenkins's can be cherished, a legacy for generations." Excitement surged again. Ideas bubbled everywhere, a virtual platform, a wall of stories in town hall, perhaps even an annual storytelling festival. But as the discussion spiraled into new possibilities, Sarah's gaze fell back on Emily, who was now surrounded by several warm smiles. The gravity of her message etched deeper in Sarah's mind. It wasn't just about sharing stories, it was about the very fabric of their community, woven together through experience, handed down through the generations. Just then, a hesitant hand shot up from the back of the room. It was another newcomer, an older man with wise eyes and a gentle demeanor. I have something to share too, if that's all right?" The air turned electric again as Sarah's heart raced. Every new voice added another thread to their burgeoning tapestry. What stories awaited them now? As Emily's hopeful expression ignited a renewed passion, Sarah sensed this was only the beginning. The evening promised more than just tales, it heralded a movement built on the strength of unity. The room buzzed with a renewed energy, excitement crackling in the air as the older man rose. His hands trembled slightly, and the slight slouch of his shoulders suggested years of unwrapped stories. He took a deep breath, collecting himself before speaking. "My name is Mr. Davis," he said, adjusting his glasses nervously. "And I was once a stranger in this town. I moved here decades ago, and while I made a life for myself, I never really belonged. Until one night, 25 years ago." He paused, his voice thick with emotion. "I was invited to a community gathering much like this one." A hush fell as people shifted in their chairs, straining to hear. Sarah could see Emily watching intently, her own story echoing in the older man's words. "It was a night I'll never forget," Mr. Davis continued, his gaze drifting to the floor. "The hall was filled with laughter, with unity. And in that space, I found something I had been missing my entire life: a family." He lifted his head, eyes glistening. "People I could laugh with, share burdens with, people who welcomed me with open arms." I felt alive for the first time. There was something in the way he spoke, a yearning that resonated deep within the hearts of everyone present. Years of loneliness poured out of him as he elaborated on those moments: the hugs shared, the tears shed, the broken pieces mended. "But then, over time, life took me on unexpected paths. I lost touch with many friends," he confessed, his voice dropping lower. "And I didn't realize how deeply their absence affected me until last year." The weight of his words was palpable. Chuckles faded away, replaced by a silence that felt like a collective breath being held. Mr. Davis's face transformed, revealing a newfound determination. "So tonight, as I share this, I'm not just recalling memories. I want to rekindle that connection. I want my story intertwined with yours." With that declaration, the crowd leaned closer, captivated by this man who had been both a part of their community and yet apart from it. His vulnerability unlocked something monumental, prompting everyone to reflect on their own lives and relationships. Sarah felt a lump rise in her throat. The intensity of sharing grew thicker, the emotion swelling like a tide ready to break. "Yes," Emily exclaimed after a silence that felt too heavy. "We should do this together. If you all have stories to share, let us create a circle. Let us remind each other why we're here. The laughter, the hard times, they all connect us." A flurry of nods and murmurs resonated. This was not just a gathering, it was an awakening. But before they could fully dive in, Mrs. Anderson interjected, her voice suddenly serious. "We could be losing our narrative, you know. What if there are stories hidden beneath layers of time? We owe it to ourselves and our future to scrape those layers away. Maybe it's more than just sharing, it's about uncovering what has been forgotten." Mr. Davis nodded, the fire in his eyes igniting again. "Yes, exactly. Like my family. I have letters and photographs, pieces of a life I keep tucked away. They mean so much, and yet, alone they just sit in a box." Others began to chime in, weaving the tapestry deeper. Someone mentioned old journals left behind, dusty scrapbooks, even unspoken memories shared with late loved ones. As ideas flew and the passion swelled, Sarah could feel the energy firing sparks of hope. They weren't just sharing stories, they were building bridges across generations. Finally, with a deep breath, Sarah spoke. "What if we don't just collect these stories? What if we also weave them in real time?" She paused, letting the idea settle. "Imagine everything we could do together by combining our experiences, the laughter, the hopes." But just as the room spiraled into excitement, a soft voice interrupted from the back. "And what if some stories we don't remember are the ones that could change us?" A wave of silence washed over the crowd again, realization dawning as every face turned to the quiet newcomer. What truths lay hidden beneath the surface? What transformative stories were yet to be uncovered in their very own community? As the echoes of curiosity began to ripple through the room like the first crack of dawn, Sarah felt a new thrill coursing through her. A journey was unfolding, and they were right on the cusp of something extraordinary. Would everyone be ready to face it together? The silence held, each person grappling with the weight of the newcomer's words. Finally, Mr. Davis broke the spell. What if we embraced that idea? He said slowly, a kind smile appearing as he took a step forward. What if we shared those very stories that linger, hidden just like those letters in my box? Maybe they hold the truth we never thought to seek. A ripple of agreement surged through the crowd. The tension transformed into curiosity, the air thick with anticipation. People exchanged glances, carefully weighing their own hidden narratives, those flickers of potentially lost but vital connections. Sarah felt it too, a compulsion to delve into her own past, to unearth what she once thought was too painful to recall. Emily touched her arm gently. You okay? She whispered. Sarah nodded, but her heart was racing. I think I am, she said softly, surprised at how the honesty in this moment steeped her emotions in unfamiliar warmth. But I feel like I should share something significant. Then do it, Emily encouraged. We're here for you. Taking a deep breath, Sarah stood, her legs feeling shaky but determined. She cleared her throat. I've had stories buried inside me too, she began, her voice shaking slightly. My family has always had this shadow hanging over it. There's something we don't talk about, something that happened with my dad. The room went still again, enveloping her in a collective embrace of support. It was hard growing up with a father who seemed haunted. He lost his father when he was young, and it turned him into a shell of a man sometimes. Her voice wavered, but she pressed on. He loved us, but there were gaps, empty spaces that I could never fill. A few members of the crowd nodded, echoes of their own experiences reflected in her words. Sarah could feel encouragement seeping through the air, welcoming rather than judgmental. And then, at my high school graduation, I found a letter hidden in the back of an old drawer. It was from my grandfather, a letter addressed to my dad. I had no idea it existed, just like how much pain lay behind our smiles. Her heart pounded as she recounted the emotions of that day, discovering not only grief but also a love that could span lifetimes. I didn't just find those words, I found a chance to connect with my dad like never before. I realized we're shaped not only by what we've lost but by the memories we share. Emotions swelled, tears brimming in eyes across the room. Mr. Davis nodded, a proud look on his face. Thank you, Sarah, he said softly. That connects us more than you know. And what about us? He gestured to the others in attendance. What do we have locked away that could breathe life into those empty spaces? As if on cue, someone in the back spoke up. I have a box of old photographs. I could never bring myself to share them. They felt too weighty with each voice. Another story spilled forth, weaving threads of laughter, heartache, and love into the gathering. It was as if unseen locks began to turn, opening the doors to their collective memories. Just as Sarah felt a glimmer of hope igniting within the crowd's spirit, a sudden rattle echoed from the corner, causing most heads to turn in surprise. A stack of books crashed to the floor, but it wasn't just the sound that startled them. It was the old album that fell open, pages fluttering to reveal sepia-toned faces gazing back at them, lost ancestors whose own stories waited to be uncovered. Eyes widened with intrigue. What other secrets might they find within these pages? What stories did those faces hold, waiting for the right moment to connect? The energy in the room surged once again as every heartbeat seemed to resonate with the mystery ahead. Would they dare to confront the past together? The journey had just begun, and it felt like a new chapter was waiting to unfold. What were they willing to discover about themselves and their family legacies? As the album lay open, a collective gasp rippled through the room. Sarah could see the faces of ancestors she had never known, staring back from pages that seemed to shimmer with memories. Each photograph captured a moment, a life, a piece of a puzzle that had long been hidden from view. The curiosity in every heart pushed aside their fears, unraveling the tension that had held them captive moments before. Mr. Davis approached the album, gently tracing his fingertips over the faded images. These could be our stories too, he murmured, his voice a soft guiding light. Every date, every face they speak. Maybe we all have forgotten they're here, waiting for us. Sarah's heart raced again, a mix of excitement and trepidation. What were these people doing in her life? What were their stories, and how did they intertwine with her own fractured history? From the back, a woman named Clara stood up, her eyes shining with the thrill of connection. My grandmother had a similar album. She used to tell us tales of our family, but I never listened closely enough. They were just stories to me, until now. Her hands trembled as she clutched her chest, a gesture of protectiveness over her heart. Let us begin to piece it together, Mr. Davis said, his tone inviting rather than commanding. Each person left behind a legacy. What would it mean if we could share even a fragment? With that, the room pulsated with life. People eagerly leaned forward, as Clara and others began to recount their histories, connecting every piece of their past to those sepia-toned faces. Sarah felt an invisible thread form between them, drawing them closer as shared laughter and tears filled the air. Look at this one! Sarah exclaimed, pointing to a photo of a woman with wild curls, a grin stretched across her face. She looks so alive. Maybe she had a passion just like mine. The crowd leaned in and chimed in. Who is she? What was her story? They pressed collectively, faces brightening with each detail revealed. As they shared, Sarah remembered the letter her grandfather had penned to her father. She recalled how it had changed her outlook, fueled her courage. Maybe this was what the letter had meant to do, spark a fire that would ignite the forgotten stories within each person gathered here. With newfound determination, she spoke softly but firmly. What if we wrote our own stories too? As we share their stories, let us commit to keeping our memories intact. Maybe this will become our album, our legacy. Nods of agreement filled the room, a chorus urging her on. So many of us have left things unsaid, Clara added. We owe it to ourselves to reclaim those voices. Let us not wait any longer. As they began to talk about preserving these moments, a tension grew in Sarah's stomach. What if, in untangling their family histories, she unearthed something more shocking about her own? Just then, another person from the gathering spoke up, an elderly gentleman with a furrowed brow. You may find some skeletons in your closets. But remember, they've spent generations buried for a reason. What will happen if we dig deeper? The energy shifted. Questions hung thick in the air like fog, an unfamiliar chill against the warmth they had just ignited. Would the stories they were about to share breathe life into their connections, or would they unleash currents too powerful to contain? The prospect felt daunting. More than just histories were at stake, identities were woven into the fabric of their voices. Sarah felt her instincts warn her to tread lightly, but wasn't this part of the journey? Would they be ready to face whatever shadows awaited within those sepia tones? The page had turned, revealing an unexpected chapter. What lurked behind those dusty photographs? What were they willing to uncover next? The atmosphere in the room shifted, hanging thick with uncertainty as each person contemplated the potential weight of their family histories. Sarah took a deep breath, trying to steady her racing heart. She could feel the anticipation mixed with fear, the kind that comes when one stands at the edge of an emotional cliff. Maybe we don't have to dive too deep right away, she suggested, hoping to ease the tension. Let us explore gently, starting with the happy memories. We can honor those first. The elderly gentleman, Mr. Bennett, nodded, his expression softening. That's wise, he said. Often, the joyful stories lead us to the harder truths. They can show us where we came from and give us strength to face what might be hidden. More agreeable murmurs echoed around the room, the air electric with budding hope. Sarah could feel the walls begin to melt away as vulnerability transformed into connection, each shared memory an invitation for another voice to join in. Clara began. My grandmother often told us about her garden, she smiled, her eyes sparkling with nostalgia. How she nurtured each plant like they were her children. She used to say that planting seeds was like planting dreams. If you believed, they would bloom. Cheers erupted as she spoke, a collective embrace of warmth and laughter, and momentarily, the weight of impending shadows faded into the background. As other stories bubbled to the surface, memories of family gatherings, holiday traditions, and acts of courage, the atmosphere filled with life. The laughter intertwined with light-hearted gasps and tears, creating a beautiful tapestry only familial connections could weave. Before long, the older man, Mr. Davis, stood once more. "Growing up in Maplewood," he said, his eyes lively, "I learned the importance of that garden. My mother tended to plants too, using them as lessons about life. Patience, care, and growth, that was her mantra. And yes, sometimes storms came through and wreaked havoc on her greens, but she would always say those storms helped the roots grow stronger." Sarah felt a flicker of recognition. "That's the truth," she replied, "Isn't it? Our struggles can be the catalysts that push us toward growth. We just have to remember that." The room was buzzing now, filled with shared connections and open hearts. Emily stood up once again. "I think that's what makes us all brave. Facing storms together. Maybe that's why we need to share these stories to remind ourselves we're not alone." And with that, the collective energy soared to new heights. People began to unleash the stories buried in their hearts, weaving them into a beautiful narrative of resilience and togetherness. The glow of warmth wrapped around them, igniting a sacred bond, one grounded in understanding that even amidst shadows, they had each other. But then, as the laughter settled into a gentle hum, the moment shifted again. Sarah, feeling a nudge inside her soul, noticed Mr. Bennet gazing thoughtfully at her. "What about your story?" he asked, his voice deliberate. "After everything you've shared, how does your father's past shape your journey?" Her heart stopped for just a second. All eyes turned to her, expectant. She felt the pull of the moment intensify, the raw honesty begging to be met. I've been scared to speak of it," Sarah admitted, her voice trembling. "But maybe there's strength in doing so." She paused, heart pounding in her chest. The truth had been sitting deep within her, just waiting for the right moment to break free. "There was a time when I felt lost," she began slowly. "When my father's struggles became my own and I felt like I had to carry them alone. But my recovery after the surgery taught me something. The pain I experienced was not a weakness, it was a connection to something deeper." Her voice began to gain momentum, drawing in the hushed crowd. "I thought sharing would mean pulling apart the memories that hurt. Instead, I realized sharing unites the past, allowing me to reshape its narrative. My father struggled, yes. But he also taught me resilience. He inspired me to care for others, even in the face of his own shadows." A wave of understanding washed over the room. There, amidst the warmth of community, Sarah found the courage to lift the weight of her unspoken feelings. Tears filled her eyes as she confessed how her father's history shaped her work as a nurse, empowering her to care deeply for others. "We carry each other's stories, and together they enrich our lives. It's not just about him, but about creating legacies that speak of love, growth, and the potential for transformation." No longer was she just Sarah, the daughter of a man who felt lost in his own shadows. She was now Sarah, the woman taking steps forward, ready to invite Maplewood into a larger conversation about their collective stories. The applause that erupted was thunderous, but it resonated with a deeper respect, the kind brought forth by authenticity. Mr. Davis stepped forward, his pride in her palpable. "Thank you for breaking those chains, Sarah. Heaven knows they weigh so much," he said, with the firmness of conviction. "This is just the tip of what we can achieve together." Nods and affirmations enveloped her, and she could feel the tide of hope swelling against the remnants of doubt that lingered inside. Just then, a spark ignited on the horizon of their journey. Emily spoke up again, "We need to gather all the stories we have shared tonight. Let us create an anthology of Maplewood, a collection of our legacies, uniting us in strength and unity." A roar of excitement filled the room, a wave that washed away the last stems of hesitation. They would weave the stories into a book, a testament to resilience, hope, and community, their stories entwined to withstand time, like the roots of Clara's grandmother's thriving garden. As they began brainstorming the project, the laughter and chatter filled every corner of the room, but at the heart of it all, a newfound purpose blossomed. They would document their histories while nurturing the new seeds that had been planted. Sarah felt an overwhelming joy rise within her, a sensation that could only be linked to the fulfillment of connecting people, reviving voices, and celebrating their legacies. And as she glanced around at the faces she loved, she realized something deeply transformative had happened. The stories had bound them together in profound ways, helping to reclaim lost memories while illuminating the path forward. Together, they were about to embark on an adventure unlike any other. They would dig deep, speak loud, and unite under the magnificent canopy of their community together, where love, bravery, and the spirit of togetherness thrived. This was at the moment Sarah had waited for, the promise of hope and unity blossoming on the horizon. But as they delved deeper into their discussions, she wondered, would they be ready for the surprises they might uncover? What was waiting just beyond the stories they had already begun to tell? Now was the time to embrace the unknown. Together, they had embarked on this journey, and in the tapestry of their lives, there lay a potential that shimmered with every thread they wove. As the energy in the room burst forth into discussions of meaning, possibility, and connection, one thing was sure: each story shared would nurture the next, helping their seeds not just to grow, but to flourish, a booming testament to Maplewood's legacy. The echoes of old photographs revived, turning mere recollections into rich narratives that would carry their community forward, creating connections powerful enough to lift the darkest shadows into the light. And in that energy, in each shared heartbeat, there lay the promise of hope. A new dawn for all of them. Now was their moment. Make sure to join this amazing journey. Don't wait not even one more second. Subscribe immediately to the channel and catch all the exclusive stories ahead. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It makes a huge difference. We want to hear you. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this heartfelt ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this transformation. You need to show your support now.